Ishura, Volume 10. Those incarcerated in the Central Detention Center of the Eurasian capital are primarily high-priority war criminals and political prisoners. The reason for its construction, surrounded by military installations, is not only because its inmates are of a low enough threat to be suppressed by conventional forces, but also because their considerable social influence makes preventing any escape or intrusion a matter of the utmost importance. It is a facility for housing prisoners like Gilness the Ruin-Bringer or Nihilo the Vortical Stampede, individuals of immense utility who must be kept eternally secret until the very moment their use is required. On the edge of the Central Detention Center's grounds, there is a building known as the Annex. Curiously, the guards themselves are forbidden from setting foot inside it. Though it is a building plain for all to see, it is treated as if it does not exist, removed even from the list of surveillance targets. Only a select few were permitted to come and go. Their true identities and statuses were thoroughly concealed, but the guards presumed they were officials from the government or the military. They were wrong. They were members of the intellectual class. Excellent scholars and teachers, many of whom hailed from the former Western Allied Kingdom. Often supplies were delivered to the Annex, primarily by these teachers. Though it was located within the Central Detention Center, the Annex was not a target for surveillance. The goods brought inside were not subject to inspection either. This was not to say that weapons or information were being exchanged. Regardless of their monetary value, the items brought to the Annex had no direct connection to crime or conspiracy, amounting to nothing more than modest gifts. Silver ornaments, a fine dress and shoes for a formal gathering, a book written in the aristocratic script, a delicate comb made of seashell, brightly colored sweets, toys. A child lived in the Annex. Her name was Nanal the Alabaster. She had never made a clear comparison with the lives of other children. Still, Nanal herself believed that her life was likely not an unhappy one. Nanal was born in the slums of the true Northern Kingdom. Her father was jobless, and her mother supported their 8 children by selling food from a street stall. Nanal was the second eldest sister among the children, and it was her daily chore to wash the massive amounts of clothing for the entire family. During the day, when her mother was away, she would look after the younger children, and when they were short on money, she would perform the little favors her eldest brother had taught her. She would find people visiting from outside the slums and offer to be their guide. Whether her offer was accepted was of little consequence. Many who saw Nanal's face would stop to listen. From there, she would direct their attention with gestures, smiles, and price negotiations. And while the customer was distracted, with their other hand, she would steal their wallet or accessories. Sometimes her younger siblings would play this role. Nanal's skill at these favors was not particularly good, but the fact that she possessed a face that could make customers stop in their tracks was one of her great fortunes. Nanal the Alabaster had albinism. Before long, the terror of the Demon King consumed the Northern Kingdom, and like so many other children, Nanal was separated from her family. The chaos and destruction of that time were so severe that out of Nanal's family of 10, she had no idea who was alive and who was dead. When she realized she was alone, Nanal baselessly believed that the Order would take her in. Rumors of the Order's involvement in human trafficking and other unsettling activities had been attached to them for some time, but Nanal's family had always been believers. Just as the passers-by in the street had always taken notice of her, she had a childlike faith that someone would find her. That faith proved to be misplaced. The ones who actually took her in were officials of the Central Kingdom. They spoke to each other of the death of King Alru and of the fall of the Western Kingdom, but they never explained to Nanal what any of it meant. From the day she was brought there, Nanal the Alabaster lived in the Annex. Whether it had anything to do with what the officials had been discussing, she couldn't say. But the name of the Central Kingdom soon changed to the Eurasian capital. The world outside for her was just a square courtyard. She couldn't leave the central detention center to see the streets of the capital, and the only visitors to the annex were a limited number of adults. Her family and friends had been lost to her since that day. Nanal's life was a lonely one, but it was likely not an unhappy one. She no longer had to suffer from hunger or cold. She ate fine meals fit for a noble, slept in a soft bed, and could even soak in a bath filled with hot water. If she ever felt the slightest bit unwell, a real doctor would come all the way to her room to examine her, even though she paid nothing. For a while after she began living in the annex, Nanal did not understand the reason for such a life. It was not for labor, nor for amusement, but these important adults were raising Nanal the Alabaster, a girl with whom they had no connection, with such great care. Perhaps in exchange for their sewa, Nanal had to study the difficult knowledge of the kingdom's history and natural sciences, and was made to rigorously practice unfamiliar etiquette. Nanal was not a quick learner, and struggled terribly. The reason for everything became clear when she was introduced to a certain girl. She had heard that for the first time since coming to the Eurasian capital, she would be meeting a girl her own age. Maybe we can be friends. What if she's a mean girl? Such carefree thoughts had crossed her mind. But when she saw the figure in the open doorway, Nanal felt her heart leap. Hello. The girl's name was Cephite. A condition like Nanal's albinism was known as a physical trait passed down through the generations of the royal family of the Western Allied Kingdom. The coincidental resemblance did not end there. Nanal's appearance and stature were also very similar to Cephite's. But what surprised Nanal was not that the girl looked like her. So you're Nanal the Alabaster. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am Cephite. I'm sorry. That was the first thing Nanal said. She remembers being so overwhelmed by the girl's radiance that she apologized for no reason. Fufu, you look just like me. But they didn't look alike at all. Her voice was clear and easy to understand, her posture perfectly straight and beautiful. The depths of her red eyes were deep black like jewels, and her pure white skin and hair showed no signs of lacking pigment. It was as if she had been born with those colors from the very start. Above all, the loving affection and grace-filled demeanor she showed toward Nanal, a complete stranger, revealed a difference in upbringing that was too far vast to compare. Ah, I see. It was none other than Nanal herself who understood. I'm this person's fake. That was why she was being raised with such care, kept from showing her face to anyone. Nanal the Alabaster was a body double. It was clear an extraordinary situation had occurred. Half of Jelki's face was covered in a blood-soaked bandage, and it seemed as though his motor functions were impaired, as he couldn't stand without leaning on a cane. Lady Cephite? Nanal, 12 years old and of an age to match, had grown to be as beautiful as a second queen, a startling transformation from her days in the slums. To anyone who did not know of the body double's existence, she was indistinguishable from the queen herself. What happened? Is Lady Cephite unharmed? The queen is still alive, I believe. Perhaps that is the more terrifying possibility. I cannot say more than that. No, Nanal the Alabaster was only needed when Queen Cephite's life was in danger, and that danger had already arrived. This was something she should have understood from the beginning. Nanal the Alabaster, this is about the Queen's disappearance. Only you and I know. The Queen is somewhere I alone know, safely. I have her in hiding. While the Six Ways exhibition is going on, you will act as the Queen's substitute. Explain yourself. Why, Jelki-sama, people of the Eurasian capital, all of you, why couldn't you protect Lady Cephite? If she was in danger, why didn't you use me sooner? We were about to ask you to take her place. When we tried to help the Queen escape, it happened then. I can say no more. I will not make excuses. Then, if the only people who know the Queen's disappearance are you and I, then the ones who should know the truth are you and I, are they not? Do you think I would abandon my duty as a body double just because I learned what happened to Lady Cephite? I am sorry.
Faced with the 12-year-old girl's desperate questioning, Jelki's voice trembled. He was like a different person from the one she had heard about from Cephite. What terrible thing must he have witnessed? I cannot say. Not to protect myself, but for the Queen and for you, I must continue to keep this secret. I will endeavor to rescue the Queen. I will risk my life. If I fail, I will take all responsibility. No matter how much she pressed him, Jelki would say nothing more. Of course, when you considered her station, Nanal was doing something for which she could have been banished from the Eurasian capital at once. The fact that the third minister of the capital himself was offering an apology out of consideration for Nanal's adoration of Cephite was an extraordinary event. Nanal the Alabaster was powerless. She had none of Cephite's authority. She couldn't even leave the annex. No matter how much she wished to die.
Incredibly, Tua maintained her sanity. Her invincible defense was designed to keep her mind functioning normally as well, rather as a weapon to defeat the true Demon King. That was precisely the function demanded of Tua the Magic. But because she was normal, she could not escape the madness of thinking the same thing over and over again, endlessly. The Demonkin do not dream, but her instinct to escape this death-like predicament rewound her life, searching through all her memories. There is a landscape that has remained burned into Tua's heart for years, unchanging. The royal capital. The capital of the Western Allied Kingdom, which existed long before Aureliatia. Entrusted to the care of Ygritte the Chromatic, who had created her, she looked down upon the final moments of that country. Leaving the side of Ygritte the Chromatic, she had stood on 2 feet for the first time in the human kingdom she had so admired, but by then, it was all too late. The people Tua had come to love were all dead, not a single one left. A small fire burned in the distance, but it would not go out. The true Demon King had only just appeared, yet the absence of any screams of madness or groans of agony was a terror that seemed even more perverse than the Demon King's army itself. I have to help. Tua at that time had thought the same thing running through the city streets. I might not make it in time, but I have to go. The faintest breath, the faintest heartbeat, Tua's ears should have been able to catch it. If someone was alive, she could help, even just one person. Someone? Her ears were indeed catching a sound. The sound of the wind blowing, the sound of crackling flames, the sound of creaking buildings. But that was all. All she could hear were the sounds of lifeless natural phenomena. For a capital this vast, she couldn't even hear the buzz of a single insect's wings. Someone, please. There were only corpses, enough to fill the streets. Some of them didn't even have any visible wounds. They had died without any reason to die, simply from overwhelming terror. This country was finished. There was no choice but to flee. What Ygritte the Chromatic had been shouting about crossed her mind. Even so, Tua ran on through the city, faster than the blowing wind, trying to catch even the smallest cry. She wanted to save them. Otherwise, she could not be saved. Someone, just one person. Before long, Tua had stepped into the royal palace grounds. There was no one to reprimand her. Everyone was dead. From very far away, she thought she heard a small voice crying, "No." It might have been an auditory hallucination. Tua broke into a dead sprint. She crashed through several buildings, ran vertically up a wall, leapt over, and kept running. The cry had come from inside a very large building, but she had no time to figure out what kind of facility it was. Hurry. I hate this. Help me. A girl with white hair was moments away from pressing a sword to her own throat. Stop. She threw herself forward and forcibly snatched the sword away. Tua fell ungracefully, but the girl's safety was more important. Idiot! She screamed, completely beside herself. You're a girl. What will you do if you get a terrible scar? In the midst of such terror, she said something completely off topic. It was the first time she had spoken to a human other than a minion. Weren't you taught to cherish your own body? The girl, surprised, looked at Tua. Tua grabbed the girl's hand. Whatever the reason, she had to stop her from dying. It was a small, soft hand. It was the first time she had touched a human's hand. At that moment,
For the first time, Tua recognized the girl's face. Red eyes that reflected the flames of ruin, long, pure white hair like silk thread. Tua the Magic lacks much knowledge and common sense, but still she thought, she's a beautiful girl. Who are you? She was frightened. Perhaps Tua's words were the cause. Humans, if suddenly accosted by a stranger, would surely be afraid. I have to be kind. Tua the Magic didn't need to breathe, but she took a deliberate deep breath before she spoke. I'm Tua, a magical passerby. Why were you doing that? She looked at the sword lying on the floor. She had been about to kill herself. Many of the capital's residents had done the same. Assailed by the true Demon King, they chose to die of their own accord. Even without wounds, even without being cornered, they ended their own lives. Why would you do something like this? No, it's not my fault, the white-haired girl said, forcing the words out. Her heart ached. Perhaps she had once again said something accusatory. No matter who it was, no one could be held responsible for such terror. Tua shook her head, as if to shake off the misery. Of course not. Let's go. Tua stood up so forcefully that the girl, whose hand she still held, was pulled up onto her tiptoes. Her eyes, which had been wide open the whole time, blinked several times. Where? Let's get out of here. I'll take you with me. The true Demon King. Something even the likes of Ygritte the Chromatic could not stand against. Something far too terrifying. Tua was a weapon created to defeat that calamity. But Tua was different from all the other people living in this world. She had to help them escape from the terror of the Demon King. Even against a terror no one could defeat, surely they could at least escape. Escape? I want to escape. But where? Anywhere is fine. If you stay in a place like this, you'll go crazy. On my back. I'm sorry. The girl apologized. There was nothing to apologize for. What for? Let's go. I'll run slowly. And then Tua ran. Contrary to her words, the scenery flowed by faster than any swift horse. She leapt from windows, over spires, walls, and gardens, moving freely. She ran through the cityscape she had gazed at for so long, a country of death and silence that Tua could not save. It's okay, Tua shouted as if to convince herself. The world isn't a cruel place. Even if there is no salvation, even if they cannot be saved, she did not want to think of it as a world where one must choose death. Even if it seemed like everything was filled with despair, Tua had still seen nothing. As long as this world held the unknown and the possible, then somewhere out of sight, hope must surely exist. I've heard it, that no matter what there are always so many possibilities, that there are all sorts of colors. If that's true, then a future where you can smile has to exist too. Tua declared with a bright voice. She had wanted to save the girl with those words only. Who are you? Tua the Magic. As for the rest, I don't really know myself, but it's okay. The important things I've known from the start. Everything but your name. Can I hear it? Sefit. That was the name of the one and only girl Tua the Magic saved on that day, for the first time. Nice to meet you. You should definitely smile more. What are you talking about? Sefit is definitely cuter when she smiles. Don't you think so yourself? While leaving the capital, the two of them had several aimless conversations. To cheer up the Sefit on her back, Tua spoke of bright and hopeful things as much as she could. Sefit, whose mind and body were greatly exhausted, eventually fell asleep. Tua was fortunate enough to find a settlement that had not been caught in the calamity and left the girl in their care without a word. At a time when the last of the royalty was on the verge of extinction, looking back now it may have been an outrageous act, but the Tua of that time lacked even the knowledge to be wary of strangers. Thank goodness. At that time Tua did not feel that way out of relief. Because she had rushed there was a child,
just one person who had been saved. With that single fact alone, she felt she could face whatever was to come. With this, I can fight the true Demon King. It was for this one purpose alone that Ygritte the Chromatic, the genius who created the Demonkin, had spent 10 years and her very life to create a weapon. Two of the magic will in theory always win against the true Demon King. Even if the true Demon King is an existence that drives the world mad with irresistible terror, Tua's nerve cells will adapt to even the destruction and alteration of the brain's nerves. More than anything, Tua does not harbor terror itself. The mechanism in the brain for feeling terror has been removed during her creation. While the city was still, one could see nothing but death in the Western Allied kingdom where all life had perished. She had been left behind, and she no longer knew where Ygritte the Chromatic or Sefid had gone. Having lost her raison d'etre defeating the true Demon King, and unable to prevent the fall of the kingdom, Tua the Magic could still not escape into madness. But it was not as though she hadn't lost her sanity. Chasing after the true Demon King, she found the maddened remains of the Demon King's army in the ruined land and repeatedly sought them out. No matter how meaningless she knew it was, Tua that had been imprinted with justice and goodness had no choice. All the sacrifices newly created by the true Demon King had been born because she had run away on that day. When the Demon King's army, unable to leave the ruins, finally perished, she would head to the next land, chasing after the true Demon King to a land where no one else could approach. Before long, Tua the Magic would arrive at the final land and come to be feared by the name of the Demon King's lost child. Pure, sane, and cheerful, she thought of only one thing. I want to apologize to all the people whose world was driven mad by the true Demon King, to the one and only person she saved on that day, but was unable to repay. I want to apologize.
The old city district of the Oreation capital was located far from the outer moat where Tua the Magic had sunk. Amidst the complex, layered cityscape, where additions and repairs had been repeated over and over, a single girl was sitting. Like a white dot dropped onto a reddish-brown painting, she stood out clearly from the scenery. In the middle of her escape through the royal palace's secret passages, Queen Sefite, whose eye had been crushed by Jelki the Swift Ink, did not even know how she had fled and ended up here. The secret passages had been laid down since the era of the Central Kingdom. It would not be strange if one of them connected to the old city district of that era, but Sefite stared at her hands. Why she was standing here, she did not know. The brilliant and calm queen of the Oreation capital had become unable to comprehend even simple cause and effect. When she had offered the hair ornament to Jelki, what had Sefite been thinking? Even Sefite herself did not know. She had just thought, I can do it. She was trembling. Terror, terror, terror. There is no greater terror in this world. Am I the Demon King? The time goes back to the deep night of the previous day. In a sunken tower in an abandoned desert sector, Nihilo the Vortical Stampede was confronting a nightmare. The laboratory that Vega had used was in a state of disarray, as if someone had knocked over every container of paint. Red, pale blue, orange, violet. The living creatures that had been abominable test subjects had all burst, melting into formless puddles. In the midst of the unnatural, hideous carnage stood a young girl with long black hair. She was the world's one and only Curselic, Roto the Cross. She was said to be the fruit of the ideal of Inu the Distant Mirror, to save the world from the terror of the true Demon King. Though she should have been a Mazaku rapidly matured by Viga's life arts, she looked no older than 10 or 11. Her awakening before her body had fully matured must have been the result of some defect.
even in such a premature form, perhaps due to the genetic factors of her source, Linares the obsidian. She possessed a beauty and allure that could make one shudder with dread. The thin tunic she wore, soaked with artificial amniotic fluid, clung tightly to her body, revealing the gentle curves of her chest, her slender thighs, and the color of her too pale skin. I can't imagine this was part of the plan. Facing the newborn child, Nihilo took a combat stance. She could not predict the speed nor the angle of the attack to come. She tried to imagine Roto's methods of attack from the flesh of the senselessly slaughtered test subjects. This is rich coming from me, but this is too wicked. Phew, 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 phew. Roto laughed with a clear voice, but what she found so amusing was a mystery. Nihilo, I like you. To Nihilo, whom she had only just met, she spoke words of affection. I want to have a taste. Swoosh, the sound echoed. Roto's figure, who had been right before her eyes, vanished. The nerve fibers Nihilo deployed from her spinal cord perceived the space around her. Roto, diving into her blind spot from a low angle as if to slip into her embrace, Spush! There was a sound. The flesh of Nihilo's shoulder was torn away. The gushing blood drew a straight trajectory toward the slanted ceiling, reflected and vanished into the darkness behind her. Roto's speed could only be perceived in this way. I can't react. Nihilo the Vortical Stampede had been designed with the premise of boarding Helnetin the Burial, but she was still a Mazuku created by Viga the Clamor, the second most accomplished master of life arts after Izik, who had poured all her skills into the creation. And as a revenant, with cold, clear judgment, she accepted the facts without regret or despair. Even among the Mazuku created by Viga, Roto the Cross was in a different dimension of performance. All this time, everyone but me was just a weakling getting crushed. The complete annihilation of an army by a single soldier, that one-sided trampling, was the function of Nihilo the Vortical Stampede. I guess I finally understand how it feels to be on the receiving end. As a revenant, Nihilo felt no pain from her wound. She could see Roto's form curled up in a corner of the unlit room. The reason Roto didn't immediately press her attack was that she was chewing on the piece of flesh she had just gouged out of Nihilo's body. I couldn't see the moment of attack. If she bit it off directly, the volume of flesh torn away is too large. The flesh and organs of the test subjects also show signs of being cut by a sharp blade. She picked up one of the organs that had spilled out of the laboratory. Roto was just a newborn, with no real killing intent. The fact that Nihilo had been given a moment's grace to anticipate the next battle was a clear advantage. She looked at the chemicals and equipment scattered around the lab. Extending her nerve fibers, she confirmed the nature of several of them. Toxic chemicals, medical blades. I have to find a weapon Roto used somewhere. The laboratory Nihilo was in was at a dead end of the floor. There were no windows in the subterranean tower, and the only way out was to cross the large room where Roto was and head for the stairs. It was unclear what the others were doing, but it was not a situation where she could expect help from Viga or Kuro. They might have already been dealt with. Even if she managed to break through the large room, if Roto pursued her at that speed, escape would be impossible. To survive here, she had to either take Roto's legs or incapacitate her. Given the difference in their abilities she had just witnessed, it seemed as unrealistic a gamble as fleeing, but it was the only option with even a sliver of possibility. Roto's attention was elsewhere, but a surprise attack that couldn't finish her in one blow would conversely create a fatal opening. It was clear that in terms of simple performance, Roto was superior. She had to create an opportunity for a predictable attack. Hey, Roto, if you like me, why are you trying to break me? Whew! Roto stopped eating and turned to face her. I hear that Mazoku, whose mental construction has failed, whose reason has broken, sometimes go on rampages. I love them." After finally swallowing the raw flesh, Roto laughed with innocent delight. "Chi, I love everyone. Everyone who was in the room, and Mother Viga, too. And Nihilo, whom I just met, my heart pounds for you. I'm so happy. I love you so much I can't calm down. I want to be close, to be one with you." "So you're eating them?" Even to Nihilo, who possessed no ordinary sensibilities, this was logic beyond comprehension. The creation of the Krishnik must have ended in an unforeseen failure, but would a self-proclaimed demon king of Viga's caliber truly fail in the construction of such an important Mazoku? And Nihilo herself lacked the empathy to immediately grasp Roto's aberrant mental structure and shift to persuasion. As a weapon of annihilation, it was a function that was not only unnecessary, but would even be a weakness. If this is a true genius, my only advantage without Helneton is combat experience. She relaxed her body slightly, and at the same time prepared her mind for the next attack. "I haven't done anything for you to like me. Let's get to know each other first." An afterimage of red light flashed, a speed that even Nihilo's eyes couldn't follow. That itself was the opening. A wet bursting sound echoed on the trajectory connecting them. Nihilo's evasion was too late. A small body grabbed her with nightmarish physical strength and slammed her to the floor. "Phew, phew, phew, phew." In that brief instant, several plans had been executed and broken through. The transcendent speed of her leap meant that she would pass through the straight line connecting them, with no room for evasion. The wet bursting sound had come from the organ of a test subject that Nihilo had thrown forward. She had grasped the properties of the organ. Roto, colliding with it mid-air, was bathed in highly acidic stomach fluid. And yet, her speed was terrifying. It was nearly not enough to stop Roto's movements. "Nihilo, do you need a reason to like someone?" Still pinning Nihilo down, she spoke with a radiant smile. The skin on her arms gripping Nihilo's biceps was burned away down to the subcutaneous tissue. Most of her tunic had dissolved, and the white ribs were visible through the wound beyond. That she was more of a threat than being unharmed was a testament to her power. In that momentary clash, she had made the defensive judgment against an unknown acid attack to shield her face, a reaction that spoke to her combat instincts. "I like your face. I like your body. Your voice is so pretty. You look at me, you talk to me, you meet with me. For me to like a person, I don't think I need any extravagant reason at all. Phew, 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 phew. See, just being close like this." She was being held down, unable to escape. Roto didn't seem to mind the pain at all. Was it the immense sense of euphoria that was constantly cerning her brain that allowed it? Slurp, chew." Pinning Nihilo down, Roto, just as an animal would nuzzle another of its kind, buried her face in Nihilo's shoulder and began to lick her blood with a look of ecstasy. "What are you doing?" "Nihilo, I love you. Stay with me." Her life was in Roto's hands. That she wasn't killed immediately was only due to Roto's whim. Could I kill her?
Roto now had a large, acid-burned wound. At this close range, she could pierce the wound with her nerve fibers and take control of her motor nerves. Even with a complete surprise attack from this distance, Roto had the reaction speed to sever more than half of the nerve fibers. But if even one could connect, she could inflict intense pain and neutralize her, a means to overturn the difference in their combat strength. The Revenant's judgment was cold. The gains and losses were weighed on the scales in an instant. She would flood Roto with her nerve fibers. To Roto's blood, she noticed a whisper-like murmur that echoed. Voiceless things chirp in the rainbow clouds, a small eye in the great cavern of the sky. The visage of a flower crumbling in the rain. Multiply.
The tips of her nerve fibers were blocked by the massive amount of blood overflowing from the wounds on her arms and chest. The nerve fibers were extremely light organs, their trajectory was deflected. She's bleeding on her own. It was a temporary defense at best. Like a many-headed serpent, she aimed again and tried to strike. And then she realized that attempt, too, was meaningless. In the instant that the blood, enough to soak the floor, had gushed out, Roto the Cross's wound had completely regenerated. The slight moment it took to pierce her skin was too long against this enemy's reaction speed. To think you were just born! The life arts of regeneration. Roto was a Mizoku who used word arts. The one-hit kill by connecting her nerve fibers was sealed. Gyufufufu, si nihilo, I gave myself my own name. The clothes she wore had mostly dissolved, revealing Roto's bare skin. The massive amount of red blood only emphasized her smooth, white, naked form. From the time I couldn't see, I was always listening to what kind of word arts were used to make me. If I did, could I control my special blood? If I did, could I love everyone? Her delicate silk-like lips sucked on Nihilo's cheek, eyelid, and then her own lips. Nihilo, Nihilo. Ugh, Nihilo groaned at the sensation of a small tongue licking her. Blood, the revenant circulatory fluid, began to leak out. Her carotid artery had been bitten through. Viga's sutures on her head wouldn't break from that level of force, but if Nihilo were a living minion, she would have died. The nucleus of her word arts. If her brain is destroyed, it's over. No, just having my neck torn open might be an irreparable this time. I'll die. Her slender arms and legs coiled around Nihilo's body. It was a checkmate. From this embraced state, whatever Nihilo tried, Roto possessed the physical ability to react and surpass her, and even if she landed a decisive blow, she would just use her life arts to regenerate herself. Roto the Cross was a beautiful angel-like girl. She seemed to have neither malice nor murderous intent and only wanted to love her victims from the bottom of her heart. And yet the end of that love was the carnage of the laboratory. Seeing Roto, anyone would be embraced, have love whispered to them, and slowly dismantled. And so... Roto leapt backwards. Her reaction speed was like that of an insect that had sensed something. Nihilo. Retreating to a corner of the large room, her smile gone, she stared fixedly at Nihilo. What is it? Ah, you noticed. I thought I was doing so well. Released from the embrace of death, Nihilo barely managed to stand up. She was positioned with the laboratory at her back. In the place of Viga, the Clamor's assistant, Nihilo knew what kind of equipment was stored in which of the lab's cabinets. It's poison. If you stay here, you'll die. From the moment she had first surveyed the lab with her nerve fibers, she had found a flask that would produce a lethal gas. She had been waiting for Roto's attack from this position without moving. The response was to fight with the volatile toxic substances that continued to spill from the laboratory. A poison attack. As a revenant, a being that does not engage in life activities, Nihilo alone could move without any of her functions being impaired, even if she was engulfed in toxic gas. The area around the lab was filled with the stench of the slaughtered test subjects and other chemicals, and identifying the smell of the poison should have been difficult. To think she could perceive this without any combat experience. Was it the keen perception she inherited from the factors of Linares the Obsidian? Or did she possess the isolated intuition of a natural-born monster? If I do that, I can't be with you. Nihilo, do you hate me? Roto the Cross looked at Nihilo fixedly. Maybe I do. What are you going to do? Are you going to kill me right now? Roto the Cross hesitated for a long time, and then she vanished towards the stairs that led to the surface. And she did not return. Nihilo, her tension broken, continued to stare at the stairs, then sat down on the floor. The only way to survive against an enemy she could not defeat, could not stop, and could not escape from was the other option, to have the enemy flee on its own. Even so, if Roto the Cross had true killing intent, it would have been easy for her to finish Nihilo before the poison could spread. She had been blessed with luck. Why has it come to this? The fact that the Kurznik had woken up and gone on a rampage in a situation where no one was watching was in itself an abnormal state of affairs. Aside from Nihilo, no one, including Viga who created Roto, was rushing to the scene. Kuro the cautious, who could predict the future and should have been watching over everything, was nowhere to be seen. I have to find everyone. An ominous premonition was beginning. A breakdown that would ruin everything. At the same time, in a location far from the sunken desert tower, the figures of several men and women could be seen. One of them, a man clad in dark brown coat, was extremely short, with the appearance of a young boy, but in reality he was an adult dwarf. He was known as Kuro the Cautious. The Nirvane has escaped. He murmured gloomily. It was impossible to see the tower's exterior from this location, but as if he had seen the series of events between Nihilo and Roto with his own eyes, he stated it with conviction. It has left the tower and is heading in another direction. We will not encounter it. Kuro the Cautious possesses an unusual ability called clairvoyance. In addition to the 5 normal senses, he is equipped with keen thermal senses, magnetic senses, and yet unexplained senses, allowing him to grasp all kinds of information about the world, the power of omniscience. Kuro had been hired by this faction for the power of his clairvoyance to avert unforeseen circumstances. The Kurznik project, proposed by Enu the Distant Mirror and worked on by Viga the Clamor, with the goal of saving the world from the terror of the true Demon King by controlling the population with the power of a vampire. The one Kuro was carrying was Lenatus the Obsidian, who had been used for that project. Yuno the Distant Talon was also accompanying them. Kuro-kun, and it was agitated. He was always watching with his owl-like eyes wide open, but now his expression was crumbling. Why did the rampage happen? There were no signs of a breakdown. If anything, the construction was proceeding more ideally than the initial plan. Don't ask me. Kuro's clairvoyance was a power befitting the name of omniscience, but it was not equal to true omniscience. The clairvoyance could only perceive the world's information. It did not grant the knowledge or learning to correctly interpret that information. But I did the job I was asked to do. If I had recognized danger in the Kurznik's construction, at that point I would have protected you all from the threat. The fact that I am not lying, you can ask the survivor, Nihilo the Vortical Stampede. In other words, he could understand without any knowledge. If he rescued Enu, Viga, Lenatus, Yuno, and Shine, everyone but Nihilo, and left Nihilo alone in that place, he knew that everyone, including Nihilo, would survive. That is why he did it. Kuro possessed no knowledge of Mazoku construction, word arts, or physical medicine, but even so his clairvoyance was able to confirm the inevitable breakdown that would visit the Kurznek created by Viga's advanced skills. He was not predicting the future logically. The clairvoyance's precognition made use of Kuro's own subconscious to be guided. It was a definite intuition that required no intermediate steps and presented only the correct answer. The process was good, was better than the plan.
Viga the Clamor, too, seemed stunned. The face that seemed to be smiling with its narrow eyes didn't change, but her voice was trembling. If the construction had failed, then the heart itself shouldn't have been formed in the first place. A cognitive abnormality that mistakes acts of slaughter for love is impossible. Who is the culprit? Enu groaned, the sound catching in his throat. The only people who could have interfered with the Mazoku's creation are you and Nihilo the Vortical Stampede. The base was a sealed room, and under Kuro-kun's watch, intrusion from the outside was impossible. But is there a possibility that Kuro-kun has betrayed us? In such a state, Enu explained himself to Nihilo as if he had seen through her dissatisfaction. As a revenant, you were judged to be able to survive. If you hadn't bought us time, one of us would have been sacrificed. We're grateful. I don't really care. Indeed, that she was able to execute an attack with toxic substances in that situation was perhaps because there was no fear of involving anyone else. Considering Roto's mobility, it was not hard to imagine that there wasn't enough time left for an escape. The fact that a role to hold her off was also a fact.
But if there was another reason for putting Nihilo in danger, then… Nihilo-kun, I want to know the current state of the Krishnik. I want you to tell me. It was to confirm the information about the rampaging Roto. For them, who had escaped following the clairvoyance's precognition, there was no way to verify the information Kuro had told them. They could not grasp the truth of Roto's rampage or the extent of its danger. Therefore, they had to send Nihilo the vertical stampede in without them, to have her engage in battle. The Krishnik is unbelievably strong. As a Mazoku, she's off the charts. Her mobility in particular is the same as Helnetin's combat speed, or even greater. Her mental construction has collapsed. She seems to have goodwill towards everything in this world, and yet she tried to kill all the test subjects and me as well while fawning over me. She's just a newborn, yet she's so intelligent she can already use regenerative word arts. She said she gave herself her own name. Her name is Roto the Cross. I see. It seems to match the situation that Kuro-kun predicted with his clairvoyance. As we arranged beforehand, we will head to the rendezvous point from here, but… Turning his back to Nihilo, Enyu continued his words. I'd like Nihilo-kun to pursue Kuro the Cautious. What do you mean? That's not what we agreed on. The creation of the Krishnik failed due to human intervention. The only suspect among us who could have performed some kind of trickery is Kuro-kun. No matter who the culprit was, with Kuro-kun's clairvoyance, he should have been able to surely perceive it, shouldn't he? The source of Enyu's irritation was that he realized it belatedly. Then perhaps the reason Enyu's group and Kuro's group were taking separate actions was not simply to follow the escape plan. You mean to say that Kuro, who brought Linares, had a change of heart along the way? Kuro is a man who continued to observe the Mijinaran even on the verge of death. I didn't think he would let personal feelings get in the way, but given that an incident like this has occurred, what does Viga think? Is there really a culprit in this incident? I don't know. Viga was also bewildered by the series of unexpected events. She remained silent for a long time, not at all like the Viga Nihilo knew. She seemed to be deep in thought, not even expressing an opinion on Enyu's decision, simply following along. I believe the Krishnik's construction did not fail. This is the first time something like this has happened. But if the technique of our bloodline that has cost generations of sacrifice has failed, was there no value in the sacrifices that we have made? Viga the Clamor was the last successor of a clan that aimed for the creation of a perfect life. The completion of the Krishnik was a cherished wish not just for Enyu but for her as well. The ultimate specimen that was Linares the Obsidian was a miracle that would never come again. To confirm that, we need to retrieve Linares the Obsidian. I want you to join Kuro-kun and monitor him as he brings Linares to the rendezvous point. It's meaningless. If Kuro is really the culprit, we'll just be letting him get away. Even so, it's fine. The weakness of the invincible clairvoyance was revealed in the Obsidian Eye's raid. Kuro-kun might be able to escape, but he cannot escape with Linares. If Kuro-kun's objective is to keep Linares alive, then at some point he will have to take separate action from Linares. You're telling me to capture Linares there? That's too reckless. To continue the plan for certain, we have no other choice. If Kuro-kun has not betrayed us, then you can just accompany him to the rendezvous point as is. That will be the greatest proof of all. Sela. Nihilo sensed an unspoken intention in Enyu's words. Enyu was using Nihilo as a decoy. He feared that if she accompanied them, she might be a target for reprisal. Viga, what do you think? The Krishnik's construction should have been a success. I need to examine Linares' body and verify it more surely. To be certain, I'll need Nihilo's help. I see. There was no affection between Nihilo and Viga from the start. That was a given. And moreover, what Viga was aiming for was a perfect life that would save all people. Annihilating the people afflicted by the terror of the Demon King was to her merely the next best option. And the completion of the Krishnik that would save the people from terror without killing them had been until just yesterday within her grasp. I'll go now. I'll be leaving, Mother. Nihilo was now nothing more than an outdated weapon. Leaving the two of them, Nihilo began running. The performance of Nihilo the Vortical Stampede would allow her to capture Kuro before he reached the city streets. In the sense of the wind clinging to her body, suddenly she recalled the words of Roto the Cross. Come to think of it, that might have been the first time. The Krishnik project had failed. If that was the truth, then that girl had been born without anyone wishing for her. That someone told me they liked me.
The night desert was bitterly cold, but what froze Yuno's insides was not the temperature. The true demon king, Kiasna the Axle, Dakai the Magpie, Sojiro the Willow Sword, the kind of powerful people who trample on the lives of others without a second thought, like a disaster. That's what I've always hated. But I know, in the midst of living with my heart set on hating such powerful people, Yuno herself had betrayed and trampled on just as many. Yuno was not by any means so unfortunate, nor so virtuous, nor so powerless as to be able to indulge in the position of a weakling. Perhaps that itself was the strength to choose one's own life, the freedom that Sojiro had spoken of in the ruins of Nagan. Will I, someday, become something I hated? Yuno the distant Talon. Kuro, walking ahead, asked in a murmur. It was strange in this cold, but he had taken off his thick coat a while ago, and the sleeping sign was now inside a pouch instead of the coat's pocket. Yes, I no longer have you under surveillance. What do you plan to do from here? I still can't abandon Linares. If I do, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Besides, if you're continuing the research on the Kristnik, you'll end up joining Lord Enyu's group anyway, won't you? No, I might not see them again. Huh? You mean? It was at that moment a storm-like cloud of sand attacked from the side. The sand, moving at a speed and pressure she couldn't even react to, slammed Yuno to the ground. An attack! Her arm that had shielded her face had several scrapes. This area was not a rocky desert, but a zone where sand had accumulated. She thought a cannonball or something had directly hit, kicking up the sand. She got up, wiped her eyes, and by then the battle was decided. Nihilo, the vortical stampede. Kuro's exasperated voice sounded. Stop the meaningless attacks. Is that so? I thought I could create an opening by making you shield Linares. Underneath the joy and bloodlust in her voice was a bewitching quality, that one that was not quite human. In that one instant, she had closed the distance from an invisible range. It was Nihilo, the vortical stampede. The hand she had reached out to snatch Linares was stopped at the initial moment of its movement by Kuro. Her physical strength should have been completely superior to Nihilo's, but the flow of that power and the point at which to stop it, to halt her, was visible to Kuro. So any little trick is meaningless against the clairvoyance, is it?
The explosion of sand from before was no cannonball. It had been nothing more than a diversion caused by Nihilo striking a sand dune. In Kuro's hand was a sand-covered coat. He had taken it off a while ago. He had defended against the explosion of sand that had assaulted both him and Linares with that one hand. He had perceived everything, from which direction, at which moment the surprise attack would come, and had stopped it with his free hand, without bringing any harm to Linares. A battle of monsters on a different dimension. Anno couldn't trust me, huh? You figured that out too? As you guessed, I've been ordered to retrieve Linares. I also know you're not serious. If it were someone who didn't know about the clairvoyance, maybe, but if you were serious, you wouldn't use such a clumsy trick. Just a little payback. You were the one who told me to abandon you and run when the Kristnik went on a rampage, weren't you? I could see that we would be saved in the end, but you're right. I have the right to retaliate. Kuro brushed the sand from his coat, but the fine desert sand was hard to get off. Nihilo clasped her hands behind her back and looked at Kuro with a joyful smile. But you just failed in your mission to retrieve Linares. Now you can't go back to Mother's group, can you? You too. Are you planning to leave this project? Without Viga the Claimer's backing, what will you do from now on? Your own objective. What is it? To retrieve Helnetin, my other body. Helnetin? It was a name Yuno had heard for the first time. What about Kuro? It has nothing to do with anyone but me. That's right. Yuno the distant Talon. You were present during the Lithia War, weren't you? I heard about it from Ennu. What of it? Yuno took a step back in caution. She never thought a monster like Nihilo would pay any attention to her here. Even though Kuro had effortlessly parried her surprise attack, there was no doubt she could kill Yuno in the blink of an eye. She was a powerful being who could seize life just by standing before her opponent. "I hate you. You hurt Linares. You did such a horrible thing." That was fun. Well, it's fine if you don't think of me as a friend. I don't like you or hate you either. Nihilo smiled and took a step closer. She was mesmerized by her golden eyes, her feet frozen as if she were a frog being stared at by a snake. Nihilo's well-formed lips whispered, "Karawa 2nd District, number 68. On the 2nd floor of the Rajura Antique Shop, there is a locked room." Huh? Huh? Couldn't you hear me? Karawa 2nd District, number 68. It's a normal city street, so no one will pay it any mind. The old man at the antique shop on the 1st floor doesn't know anything either. There's no key to the room, but the tenant is gone, so you can just break in. She didn't understand any of it. Why suddenly would she tell Yuno such a thing? What meaning was there in telling her? Under the rug there's a hidden door where Yukiharu the Twilight Diver gathered information and its evidence. If you want power, go there. You know the distant Talon. Why? In her confusion, the thought just slipped out of her mouth. She backed away. Why are you telling me such a thing? What's the meaning of it? Ah, my explanation was insufficient, I suppose. Yukiharu the Twilight Diver was my companion until a little while ago, a guest who had gathered information that could overturn all of Aurelia. He died along the way, but it would be a waste for his work to go to nothing, wouldn't it? And it was something I couldn't really talk about where Enyu was. The name Yukiharu the Twilight Diver, she knew it from when she worked under Hade. He had been secretly active during the Six Ways exhibition, gathering information in various places. She also hadn't known that he had died somewhere unknown, and the information he had gathered was now lost. Such a thing. Nihilo-san, you could just use it yourself, couldn't you? Sort out the information and make good use of it, or introduce it to society. Do you think a revenant like me can do such a thing? I'm not a human, you know. Besides, my head's not that sharp. And it would be better if it was a kid who would use it in the most enjoyable and destructive way. That's what Yukiharu would have wanted too. Even so, something so important. I'm sure I can't go to such a place. The proof of the true hero's identity is there too.
Heh. A good reaction. You've earned the right to be told. This one isn't lying. Kuro glared at Nihilo with a grim expression. What should I do, Kuro-san? Don't try to get me to stop her. It's a loss to get involved in such a troublesome matter. I don't need you to believe me. I just wanted to tell someone. With that, Nihilo turned on her heel. She seemed to have lost interest in Yuno in an instant. I'm going. I've caused you trouble. Nihilo! Yuno tried to call out to her, but Nihilo didn't look back. In the quiet desert, the sound of a heartbeat echoed like tinnitus. Yuno was afraid. The true identity of the true hero. A truth that could overturn all of Ariatia. To know something that no one knew, if you tried to find it out, you could know it now. It was a feeling like having a world-destroying bomb gently handed to her. "Nihilo-san, what are you planning to do?" "Who knows, but you probably won't see her again." No matter how much the distant Talon struggled, before the immense power that actually moved the world, her actions were no more than the flapping of a butterfly's wings, she thought. Yet in the course of this quiet night, the Nerva was unleashed along with a terrifying rampage. Nihilo, the vortical stampede, began to act on her own will. And Kuro, the cautious, who prided himself on his omniscience, and Linares the obsidian, the worst of all mutations, were accompanying Yuno. Don't think of it as a matter that concerns you. Yuno had learned the location of a truth that could overturn Oriatia. Had the events of this day truly set the world in motion? The world does not revolve around us. Kuro, the cautious, spat out the words as if in resignation. Enu, the distant mirror, and Viga, the clamor, walked in the desolate desert without exchanging a word. The desert region of the Ariatian outer ward was vast, but compared to Ariatia, which occupied an even larger area, it was not that large. It would still take an entire night to get from the sunken tower to the city streets without a carriage. The ground beneath their feet began to be covered with stone pavement, and the number of houses belonging to the Smeu, who lived in the outer ward, increased. Morning was near. From beyond the clouds, the pale yellow light of dawn began to leak through. "Viga-kun, next is—" Enu narrowed his eyes at the light. "Next, I promise to prepare a better research environment, create a perfect Krisnik, no matter how many years it takes." The creation of the Krisnik was not a plan that had just started. Always evading the eyes of Oriatia, on one hand using the development facilities of the National Defense Research Institute, they had spent years on the selection of a source body and the evaluation of the virus's behavior, and on numerous foundational research. The final piece that had shattered the plan was a piece that should have been perfectly in place. Linares the Obsidian was a mutation unprecedented in history. Her introduction into the construction of the Krisnik may have had some unforeseen effect. No, I will say it again, but that is unthinkable. In the state of the virus after the experiments up until the day before, there were no signs of any deviation from the standard. Viga's drawn-out tone was not its usual one. Even Viga, who seemed to be a complete mental breakdown, had feelings of anguish and worry. If the mutation in Linares-san was the cause, then Linares-san was hosting a virus that had mutated into a completely different nature without any warning. If such a thing is possible, you can't even call it a vampire. That's right. As for me, I trust you more than Kuro-kun. Enu-san, you don't think that I was simply the one who failed? I don't think so. He tried not to look at Viga's expression as she walked behind him. Enu walked with his back to her. Is it not that I betrayed you instead of Kuro-san?
I don't think so. Viga the Clamor was a cruel, broken person. In that situation, she was the one who should have been suspected first. We've known each other for a long time. I may not have knowledge of life arts, but I know you well. It's impossible for you to fail under those conditions. He said it without looking back. The village where Viga the Clamor was born and raised was a village without a name. A hidden village where a demon king who had been exiled from the kingdom long ago had established it for the pursuit and succession of life arts and medicine, the result of generations of breeding improvements using her own bloodline for grotesque crossbreeding and modification, a genius born of that. That was Viga the Clamor. However, the clan's purpose was not to spread death, nor to destroy the kingdom. It was to create a perfect life, to save a world without salvation.
Believing in the existence of the god of words in this world, they had sought salvation in the idol of science. And Viga had destroyed the village where she was born and raised, and had come one step short of the genocide of Oriatia. It was to stop the spread of the disease of fear in the age of the true Demon King. Viga, captured as a criminal, was not given a chance to use her talents. She was used up as bait to expose the National Defense Research Institute secretly organized by Iriolde. When the National Defense Research Institute was attacked, an order for Viga the Clamor's assassination had been issued from Oriatia, along with Yukiharu the Twilight Diver. There were no who trusted Viga. She was a monster. And yet, you never once spoke a word of resentment towards me or Oriatia. Ainu had betrayed numerous organizations, but he had bet on Viga the Clamor's genius and her inner purity. The rational bureaucrat who had risen to the top of Oriatia and the self-proclaimed Demon King born without a shred of morality were different in every way, but they must have been comrades who shared a single wish.
Ainu-san, this may be only a small comfort for you, but
Viga spoke hesitantly.
the Krisnik, Roto the Cross, will fulfill the purpose we sought. The body that will spread peace through airborne infection without harming each other is already complete. It's just that its mind is broken.
To make a self-proclaimed Demon King like you say that, I must be getting dull. He chuckled. He had been prepared for his emotions to be unmoved by anything, but the fall from hope was still hard to bear. From the start he knew it was a plan like a dream. The next and any further opportunity would never come no matter how many years he waited. Indeed, even if Roto the Cross is a monster who plays with and takes several lives every day, as the maintenance cost for world peace, it's a sacrifice that's too cheap. But as a further significance, it must not be an individual hostile to the human race. A being that makes someone fear it, someone will surely try to defeat it. Huddled in people's lives, creating a perfect community, and after it has been engraved in all people, to end its life peacefully in a single generation, the salvation that the Kreisnik Project offered had to be that way. Even if Roto the Cross achieves anything from now on, Oriatia will have to subjugate her. Even if Roto loves them? Yes, that's right, because they can't believe it. In reality, Ainu himself knew it. Ainu, the distant mirror, had made the wrong choice. He had feared and doubted Kuro the Cautious, and yet he had understood that his judgment was correct.
It may have been to save Linares the Obsidian, who had once been his master, but he knew that he wouldn't break a promise he had made once. The reason he couldn't believe it from the bottom of his heart was because he thought that Kuro the Cautious and they were different. Everyone in this world is instilled with a fear of the powerful. This path of self-destruction that Oriatia was treading was the same. Every time they witnessed the immense power of the hero candidates of the Sixth Ways exhibition, they would come to believe that they were beings who could trample their world with a single will. They would come to wish that they had to destroy the threat that would surely destroy them, before it destroyed them. The heroic heroes who had challenged the true Demon King had all become that way. If they could have believed that such transcendently powerful people actually had hearts no different from their own, that they were just trying to live righteously according to their own beliefs, how much better it would have been. This world was not like that. A perfect Krisnik was necessary. Viga-kun, next is... He turned around. He was about to say, "You can do it." The figure of Viga who had been walking with him just moments before was gone. Instead, a grotesque man was crouched on all fours, with long arms and legs. The worst of all intelligence groups that he hadn't even been able to recognize was approaching until it was in his field of vision. It seemed as if the destiny of Inu the Distant Mirror had run its course here. Ah, the Krisnik, Roto the Cross. A good name. Even just a glimpse. She had indeed awakened. She was said to have high physical abilities and intelligence.
a single example of a beautiful, strong life form that I had wished for too. A massive organizational restructuring had recently taken place at the Ministry of Industry of the Yellow Capital. Even before that, following the downfall of the fourth minister, Kaete the Round Table, on suspicion of fraud in the sixth match and conspiracy of insurrection, nearly half of the most influential bureaucrats had been poached by other members of the 29 officials. The ministry had only just reorganized its operations with a reduced staff and scale. Furthermore, numerous employees were arrested for having followed Kaete in his plot against the current regime, taking on roles in the research, maintenance, and smuggling of weapons from the beyond. And now, that same Kaete had suddenly been reinstated to the 29 officials. A series of large-scale political upheavals and the death of Rosclay the Absolute had forced a major restructuring of the Yellow Capital's organization, not limited to the Ministry of Industry, but Kaete's return, even taking into account that his suspected fraud in the sixth match had been cleared, was an incomprehensible personnel decision. His reinstatement to the 29 officials also seemed to be merely a nominal loan of the position. Kaete was strictly a special advisor, not integrated into the Ministry of Industry's chain of command, and was under constant surveillance. Since he had no need to command, his office was also exceedingly simple. It was a repurposed maintenance crew station, left vacant due to staff cuts, with only a semblance of an interior redesign. Kaete paced around the windowless room, looking irritated. It was not because he had been provoked to anger by the assignment of this office. The threat facing Kaete, no, the entire Yellow Capital, was far more real and direct.
It's not just Kia the World Word. Mr. Lexiel's learning ability was also beyond calculation. To think it could resort to such a measure. The annihilation of the omnipotent. Mr. Lexiel had thoroughly carried out this logically impossible order. Every single attack, including the weapons from the beyond, their combinations, and even getting behind the all-automated defense, had been ineffectual against Kia the World Word. And yet, Mr. Lexiel had ultimately destroyed Kia with an attack in the form of words. Mr. Lexiel had accomplished its mission. The method, including the tactics that preceded it, was something Kaete could never have imagined. But from the perspective of eliminating the fundamental threat to the Yellow Capital and the Queen, everything had rolled in the worst possible direction. A small, childlike machine resembling Mr. Lexiel's head, with 3 legs sprouting from its spherical body, ran around laughing. It chased a bird-like drone constructed with its own word arts. As if it gives a damn how I feel, Kaete thought. What a carefree bastard. Oh, what's going to happen to us? This was no longer a stage where he could pin the responsibility on Kaete or Mr. Lexiel and pretend it never happened. The other members of the Yellow Capital's 29 officials were not foolish enough to think the problem was solved. Mr. Lexiel's combat power was indispensable for suppressing Kia and the other threats, even if only slightly. But what if Mr. Lexiel is disposed of? An omnipotent being could not kill Mr. Lexiel. That had been proven. But what if, for example, a method outside of Kaete's imagination, like Uhak the Unspoken, who was originally slated to be deployed in the mission to subject Kia, or the parent entity of the Obsidian Pupil, a blood demon vampire that could infect someone instantly with the slightest scratch, was used by the Yellow Capital against Mr. Lexiel? He couldn't say for sure that it wouldn't happen. Kaete, next. Who's the next opponent? Shut up. I'm thinking right now. Having lost his entire power base, Kaete's only remaining card was Mr. Lexiel. Mr. Lexiel was a perfect combat organism, but Kaete was the only one who could politically protect it from the state of the Yellow Capital. He had to consider what would happen if the worst came to pass. If they're going to take it from me anyway, maybe I should just take the Yellow Capital itself. The arsenal once produced by this Ministry of Industry had all been confiscated, and he didn't even have soldiers under his command. But with Miss Alexiel alone, he probably could seize both the ministry and the royal palace in an instant.
Including the fact that Kaete and Kiazuna would be safe after it was all over, it was a childishly desperate plan that bordered on delusion. But compared to being killed by Kia the World Word and surviving, striking first and attacking the Yellow Capital to survive felt more realistic. No matter how foolish they are, I doubt they're naive enough to think they can seize power just by securing the Queen. But the situation is different from before. Rosclay is dead, if it comes to it. The static of an incoming radio transmission cut off his thoughts. The caller was Hido the Clamp. Kaete, this is an urgent summons. Can you make it to the Central Assembly Hall? State your business. You think I'll move for an unclear request? I don't have time to deal with that attitude of yours right now. The royal palace has been destroyed. It was Kia the Word Word. The main building has been hit. The royal palace? Even Kaete, who spat on the authority of the kingdom and the value of the queen, could only be struck speechless. Even the attack on the royal palace by Kialiga the Reed had only managed to breach the moat of the palace district. The main royal palace building was the central hub of the palace district, serving as Queen Sefite's own residence. For a report to arrive stating that the main building had been destroyed, without any word of the palace district itself falling, was an event that should never have happened. It was an enemy that could accomplish such things, ignoring reality, power, and obstacles. Had the Yellow Capital severed the slender thread that had barely managed to keep that monster in check? All available personnel for this incident, including the on-site commanders, were summoned. The one entrusted with command of the Royal Palace Assault incident was the 20th Minister of the Yellow Capital, Hido the Clamp. Amid the vortex of the Six Ways exhibition, he had once been dismissed from the 29 officials, only to return as the person in charge of the Royal Palace Assault case after the great political upheaval. In that regard, his circumstances were the same as Kaete's. However, his authority of command was higher than his. It was an extremely unpleasant fact. A few people have yet to arrive but will begin. Hido didn't even introduce himself to the members gathered in a conference room. His usual impoliteness seemed to stem from more an impatience that grudged the time. I will restate the situation. The Royal Palace building was destroyed by Kia the World Word. The damage is to the entire second floor of the West Wing, in the vicinity of the Hall of Mirrors. It looks like it was gouged out in a sphere and obliterated. Naturally, the hunting armory below it is in a state of annihilation. As for human casualties, 3 attendants suffered minor injuries. Kia made a point of appearing before them before carrying out this string of destruction. So you're saying it was a warning or intimidation tactic? Someone from the National Police Agency asked, raising his hand. That's right. If she wanted, she could have done this without showing herself to anyone. She could have caused destruction that would have embroiled the attendants, and she could have targeted and killed the Queen herself. The fact that she carried out this conspicuous destruction in the worst possible way should be considered a declaration of war against us. Apparently, she actually said as much to the attendants. You all killed Elea. Just how much anger must have been contained in those words? A mere 14-year-old girl had declared war on the greatest kingdom on earth. I will not forgive you. Silence dominated the conference room. Kia was not trying to simply erase everything and be done with it. She intended to inflict a terror befitting the hatred she bore upon this Yellow Capital. What a sentimental brat! Staring at the silence of the conference room, Kaete felt anger, not at the enemy, but at their irrationality. For some reason, transcendently powerful beings like Kia the World Word and Kiazuna the Axle preferred self-indulgent revenge. The powerful believe, without a doubt, that the right to choose the means is always on their side. If you'd just let us confirm our defeat, we could accept it gracefully. But by cornering us while leaving room for resistance, you leave us no choice but to fight back desperately. Hido's voice as he answered the attendees' questions also held more anger than fear. It was vexing, but his feelings were likely similar to Kaete's. Damn it, all we can do is throw Uhak the Unspoken at her. If that great ogre, who we can't even communicate with, takes out Kia on some whim, we might have a chance. Even if you manage to pit Kia against Uhak, there's no guarantee he can be defeated. A true omnipotent being might be able to create word arts from a state where they've been erased. I don't have time to debate such tall tales. Is it really a tall tale? You saw her survive Mestelexil's attack. Just as you said, we still don't know the true extent of Kia's power. Tch. Hido clicked his tongue, looking genuinely irritated.
Any ability has its limits. The strategy Kaete had devised that day was based on that worldly principle. But even with the power of the beyond, it was not possible to measure the limits of the omnipotent. I have one more thing to ask. What happened to Yanigez? He didn't come to the summons. You get it. That idiot resigned from the 29 officials. From the start, his plan to use Elea's name to lure out Kia was a unilateral move he made because this was his intention all along. Rose Clay has brought Rose Clay's underlings with him and is trying to kill Kia the World Word. He's gone off the rails. Had the groundwork within the reformist faction already been laid? The height of folly, but his persistence is considerable. Does Yanigez know about the current operation? Who knows? There are plenty of reformists among the people gathered today. If someone's leaking information to Yanigez, he might try to crash our party to kill Kia. Not that it matters if he shows up. How are you planning to lure out Kia? Kia has a high probability of coming to retrieve her comrade. Elea might be dead, but if Uhak is alive, he can be saved. That's why we're transporting Uhak the Unspoken via the North-South Railway. The one escorting him is Kuze, the passing disaster. Uhak was with Kia and Tu, but he might prioritize the words of his senior disciple from the same order over them. So Kuze is both the means to counter Kia's omnipotence and the means to control Uhak, who is the bait. This is a clever two-pronged move. If Uhak the Unspoken can truly erase all abnormal phenomena, then once she has Kia within her sphere of awareness, she could be killed with a single musket. Furthermore, Kia's attacks would be nullified by Kuze the passing disaster's instant death counter. Kaite, there's no organization you can move, but there's a reason I called you. You know right. The train Uhak is on now is the Orange 36 of the North-South Railway. Have Mestelexil give the order and catch up to it. Don't need you to tell me. I intend to deal with Kia the World Word. It was my and Mestelexil's mission from the start. That's what I can't stand. The moment Yanigez resigns, you make your move without consulting anyone. Was this emergency meeting a farce too? What he couldn't stand was not just that. His strongest piece, Mestelexil, was being treated as nothing more than a secondary last resort measure. It's not like I enjoy throwing my authority around, you know. Hido slammed his fist against the wall, but due to his fatigue, it only made a light sound. This is an emergency. It's a situation where waiting for everyone's opinion would be too late. We were lucky that the only thing destroyed was the main royal palace building. At this very moment, another part of the yellow capital could be under attack, and a whole district could be wiped out. The Hido the Clamp of the past was a genius, acknowledged as having been raised in a greenhouse.
Kaite had recognized his talent, but in the world of political strife, he saw him as nothing more than a weak foe who couldn't even reach Rose Clay's feet. But having dealt with Hardy and Yaniguez, and having witnessed their madness, a flame of obsession may have been kindled within him as well. Against a truly omnipotent foe, there was no room for holding back or choosing one's means. Regarding that point, Kaite's opinion was exactly the same as Hido's. If you're going to say it, don't get your priorities wrong. Kill Kia the World Word first. At the same time, a strict security net was in place around the canal in the 6th borough of the Yellow Capital's northern outer ward, and civilian access was prohibited. The great destruction that had annihilated the harbor and the numerous ships moored there was explained as the work of the self-proclaimed Demon King, too. The claim of ensuring civilian safety was not a deception. As a result of the battle with Shulk the Sound Slicer, the magic had been neutralized and was in a state where recovery was difficult. But the primary operation, the subjection of Kia the World Word, had failed. There was a possibility that Kia would attack the 6th borough of the northern outer ward to rescue which could lead to unforeseen casualties. Kia's World Word's combat power was no longer on a personal scale. It was equivalent to a natural disaster at minimum. Although it was not possible to prevent her assault while under the guard of the Yellow Capital's Grand Army, there was still meaning in monitoring the canal. One reason was to prevent contact and sightings by civilians. The fact that Kia and Tu had been designated as self-proclaimed Demon Kings had not yet been made public at this point. The other reason was the primary objective of observation. If Kia chose to immediately rescue Tu, it was highly likely she would then attempt to make contact with Uhak. Focusing on Uhak's transport mission was the best course of action. What Tu felt, submerged at the bottom of the water, was one part of that hurried movement. An unnatural vibration and sound transmitted faintly from the land, different from the river's flow. The human presence, unbefitting the desolate streets of the 6th borough of the northern outer ward, roused Tu from her daze of regret. Of course, as a demon, Tu had not truly been sleeping. What's going on? As a result of her battle with Shulk the Sound Slicer, Tu had been immobilized. What bound her body was her own hair that could not be severed even with the might of Tu, designed for ultimate physical ability. The darkness of the deep riverbed, buried under countless tiles and sand, was an environment where the sense of time was lost, and yet she had not lost to Shulk that long ago. The faint vibrations eventually became a vortex, a current with one direction. And it was no normal river current. It was a torrent moving towards the water's surface. Gurgle? Swallowed by the turbid water, she struggled, unable to move her limbs freely. Since being sunk by Shulk, Tu had long since stopped breathing voluntarily, but being freed from being completely buried in sand and silt caused water to rush into her respiratory system. Of course, Tu did not experience the panic of drowning like an ordinary creature. Even in the torrent, like a world turned upside down, a clear cognition remained. There was a voice. Return to. This came clearly to her ear even in the torrent. It was Tu's voice. Kia! Pulled up from underwater by the torrent, Tu was thrown up to the surface with its momentum. From the sky, it was clear that the very flow of the canal was twisted, as if a great serpent were showing its belly.
The canal was dyed pitch black in the middle of its course. The original riverbed was turned upside down to the surface, giving birth to a muddy stream of immense amounts of wood and metal. It was monstrous. Tu landed like a cat onto the devastated harbor. The hair that had been complexly tied around Tu's body had come undone as if by necessity while she was thrown into the air. It was not a phenomenon that should occur naturally. Kia! It's you, isn't it? Kia! There was no one other than Kia the World Word who could cause such a phenomenon with a single word art. Even if she was caught up in the Yellow Capital schemes, Kia was safe, and had come to save Tu. But was the Kia that Tu knew a girl who would use such destructive word arts? She had a gut feeling of unease. The wind was strong. "Kia, where are you?" She was able to find Kia's form right away. In the middle of the torrent where it was impossible to reach from the harbor was the strange wreckage of a ship, and the waves which were raging in a way that defied all reason were still only at that one point. At the prow of the unmoving wreckage, a girl in green clothes stood. "You're safe, too," Kia murmured with her back still turned. She was safe. At least she hadn't had her freedom taken away like Tu. And yet, why did she feel this indescribable unease? "Hey, what about you, Kia? I'm sorry I couldn't come help." "It's me." Her golden hair, tied in two, was undone, flowing gently in the dark blue sky. "You're an idiot. It's fine. It's totally fine. No matter what anyone does to me, it's not like I'd care." "Kia, if I tell them to die, everyone will die. That's how it is, right?" "What happened?" Kia did not answer the question. "Hey, Kia, I think I might have liked the yellow capital." She had heard that Kia once lived a modest, contented life in a small village on the Editree roadway. Such a Kia, taken out of her village by her teacher, lost many things in the world outside. Separated from her teacher, she continued her lonely flight all alone. "I've been through a lot of terrible things, gotten angry, and there were times I felt disgusted, but I didn't hate humans." The spray from the canal raging with word arts washed over Tu's cheek. She felt like she understood why Kia wasn't facing her. "But me..."
I can't be scared. I don't have that function. The minion race thinks about so many things, and she knows nothing of what it's like for them to be hurt or to suffer. She's always left behind. And yet, why is it so sad when someone Tu knows is hurt or suffering or gone? That day when she met the real Demon King and came to know true terror, she thinks some part of the function designed into her as a complete being must have broken. "Kia, I'm going too. I won't ask anything. Tu, I can do anything. I can do anything at all. I'll be with you. That's something that only you can't do, Kia. Even with invincible power, that is all one can do for those who tremble in fear." Whether it was when she saved Sephet or in the final land, throughout that entire journey, that was the only thing Tu could do. No matter who else was gone, only Tu would not perish. "Let's go save Uhak. We can definitely still make it." Kusei, the passing disaster, after finishing his mission to subjugate Nektigio, the engulfing maw in the Kadan 3rd District, was transported to the Lamag Joint Military Hospital. He was suspected of having been infected with an unknown pathogen after stepping into Nektigio's mycelial labyrinth. For Kusei himself, it was a scheme to buy time until the start of the 11th match, by being hospitalized. The opponent for the 11th match, Zeljirga, the Abyss Web, was currently missing. Unless she was found or the Yellow Capital secured a substitute hero candidate, Kusei's match would end in a default victory. That would make it impossible for Kusei to achieve his goal. To ensure he had Queen Sephet in the range of Nastique's fatal power, the matches from the second round onward, where the Queen herself was stipulated to be in attendance, had to take place. The story about being unwell was a pathetic fake illness, though. Kusei now was on a bed that shook slightly, the vibration of a steam engine and iron wheels. Kusei was lying in a sleeper car of the North-South Railway, the Orange 36, that, as its name suggested, ran north-south through the Yellow Capital. To think they'd drag me out before my hospital stay was even over. The job ordered to Kusei was to escort and control the recaptured Uhak the Unspoken. He hadn't been told more than that. Just like with Nektigio, there must be a threat somewhere that required Uhak's power. In the end, Uhak had reverted to being a weapon of the Yellow Capital. He couldn't set him free. Kusei's attempt to save Uhak and Tu had ended in meaninglessness. Uhak the Unspoken was free for less than a small month after the Nektigio subjugation, and Tu the Magic had been designated a self-proclaimed Demon King to be slain by the hero candidates. Would Kusei too eventually be ordered to slay Tu? Anything but that. Anything but that. To carry the stain of the order on his back, he had to assassinate the Queen.
The only way for a man like Kusei to get close to the queen was to remain on the board as a hero candidate. The plan to assassinate the queen was no longer Kusei's problem alone. Dozens of the Order's top brass were staking their lives and honor on its success. Kusei himself had taken too many lives to kill the queen at the end. He had even taken the life of Kusei's friend and Uhak's sponsor, Norfelt. Regardless of guilt or innocence, there should be no superiority or inferiority of life among those with a heart. That was the teaching of the Order. And yet, if Kusei's selfish wish were to be granted, he did not want to kill too.
You must be aware, but I'm just recovering from an illness. I have no desire to fight another absurd opponent like Nick Teggio, but... Lying on the bed, he called out to the man sitting in the same room. Are we really just escorting Uhak, Lord Yanagise? Yes, my apologies for the unreasonable request. Yanagise the Chisel was a gaunt man with jagged teeth, thin as a wire. He was once one of the 29 officials of the Yellow Capital, but was said to have been demoted for some reason. Ever since Hardy, the Fount of Gunfire, plotted a political coup, and Rosclay, the Absolute, fell in the midst of the chaos, the personnel affairs of the Yellow Capital's 29 officials had been in the height of turmoil. But, Sir Kusei, you managed to communicate with the word Artemune Uhak during the Mycelia Labyrinth incident, didn't you? Besides, your power is effective, even if you don't fight yourself. Is there a possibility we'll be ambushed during the transport? That sounds terrifying. If an attack targeting Uhak were to occur, and it was a large-scale attack that would engulf Kusei, Nastique would kill that enemy first. That was likely the Yellow Capital's plan. He had no intention of correcting their misunderstanding. Nastique would never get close to Uhak, who could erase all word arts. And even if Nastique were there was no guarantee of the target's absolute safety. Rosclay, too, had died right before Kusei's eyes. Just out of curiosity, who are you planning to have Uhak fight? With his sponsor gone, Uhak is no longer officially a hero candidate, is he? That is a classified matter. I hear, too, the magic was designated a self-proclaimed Demon King. Is the mission her subjugation? No. There was no point in asking. What a pathetic question. It was a question asked only to have his most cruel assumption denied. Even if it were affirmed, he would not have had the resolution to abandon his position as a hero candidate and resist, nor the resolution to abandon Uhak and Tu. The window, seen from the bed, was at a terribly narrow angle, and white clouds flowed past beyond it. The things Kusei the Passing Disaster could do were always just about giving up. Outside the train, on the edge of the window, sat a girl with soft, short hair, as white and translucent as her skin. She was looking back at the direction the train was moving, as if seeing off the scenery. It wasn't the direction of travel, but the past she was pondering that was just like her, Kusei thought. The angel who brings death, Nastique who sings in silence. That was the name of the angel only Kusei could see. Sir Kusei. Yanagise, who had been sitting with his head down, opened his mouth. I was born in the Central Kingdom, but in a rather poor district. The Order helped me many times, and I caused them a lot of trouble. If we were able to help Lord Yanagise, I'm sure everyone was happy to do so. What about it? The teaching that says, you must not hate, you must not harm, you must not kill. The Order has that, doesn't it? As you would to your own family, you know it well. Kusei sat up and perched on the edge of the bed. There was no point in feigning illness now, and more than that, he felt that as a follower of the Order, he should listen to Yanagise's confession with sincerity. Then, if an enemy has appeared in this world that you can't be satisfied with just killing, is such a person no longer saved by the god of word arts?
Kuze looked at Nastik outside the window. You must not kill. The one who defies that teaching more than anyone is Kuze himself. He had never hated or harmed anyone, but he had continuously made Nastik kill people. That felt like a sin even deeper than killing out of hatred. There are several theological debates on the matter, so if you're fine with my preferred interpretation, I believe that this teaching is not meant to punish those who hate or harm. It's a teaching that loves all who have a heart. The idea that you should only be kind to good people who don't have a bad bone in their body, well, then wouldn't all the others not be saved? But there are many followers who interpret the Order's teachings as a doctrine of absolute punishment. Especially during the age of the Demon King, the rampages of civilian followers were excessive. That's true. Even I can't say that I thought all those people had the wrong understanding, much less that they weren't part of the Order. I can't say that even if my mouth were torn open. The numerous slanders against the Order, born from the terror of the true Demon King, were not all baseless rumors. There were many followers who, driven by a twisted faith, caused atrocious incidents. At least for those who caused such incidents at the time, their faith in the God of Word Arts was a salvation that removed the terror of the true Demon King. The sight of trusted priests and followers running mad became etched into people's hearts as a fear of the organization of the Order itself. Anyone can hurt someone, even us of the Order. But don't you think that at the same time we wish for it somewhere in our hearts? The truth is, we don't want to hate, we don't want to hurt, we don't want to kill. Because continuing to hate someone is painful for anyone, isn't it? In this world there are those who can turn hatred into a driving force, who rejoice from the bottom of their hearts at hurting others. But as long as they're human, Kuze believed they weren't like that from the start. If such a heart was changed by the suffering of living, then it could change again. It could surely return to the heart originally given by the God of Word Arts. I sort of get it, and I sort of don't. With his fingers interlaced on his lap, Yanagis remained looking down. If that's all you're saying, it feels like it lacks any sense of admonition. If the God of Word Arts and the Order won't punish a hateful heart, then who on earth will? There are those who pass judgment. They are always watching us. To do the right thing? Because if you do bad things, you will be punished by the angel. 2. It is our own hearts. The angel the Order speaks of is not visible, nor does it speak to you. But when the God of Word Arts began this world, the angel that was divided as the invisible authority of the God of Word Arts, when its role was finished, it scattered to the corners of the world in tiny pieces and dwells in each and every heart. The heart. The guilt one feels for a sin is the punishment itself. Is that your interpretation, sir? Is it too convenient a story? But when I think about the reason we are born with a conscience, a heart that should be a liability if one were to live selfishly, the reason such a function exists, that seems to me the most logical explanation. It's not a very useful story, though. Then, to erase hatred, if a sinner wishes to no longer suffer, what should they do? The Order's teaching is to know the heart of the other. If you can acknowledge that even the person you hate has a part of them that is the same as you, you no longer have to keep hating them. It's a deception, he thought to himself. He was only relaying what was widely taught in the Order. Kuze didn't know the way people were truly saved. In this world where the terror of the true Demon King had spread, even the leaders of the Order, far wiser than Kuze, likely did not know such a method. To know the heart of the one you hate. Kuze looked at Nastik outside the window. You must not kill. The one who defies that teaching more than anyone is Kuze himself. He had never hated or harmed anyone, but he had continuously made Nastik kill people. That felt like a sin even deeper than killing out of hatred. There are several theological debates on the matter, so if you're fine with my preferred interpretation, I believe that this teaching is not meant to punish those who hate or harm. It's a teaching that loves all who have a heart. The idea that you should only be kind to good people who don't have a bad bone in their body, well, then wouldn't all the others not be saved? But there are many followers who interpret the Order's teachings as a doctrine of absolute punishment. Especially during the age of the Demon King, the rampages of civilian followers were excessive. That's true. Even I can't say that I thought all those people had the wrong understanding, much less that they weren't part of the Order. I can't say that even if my mouth were torn open. The numerous slanders against the Order, born from the terror of the true Demon King, were not all baseless rumors. There were many followers who, driven by a twisted faith, caused atrocious incidents. At least for those who caused such incidents at the time, their faith in the God of Word Arts was a salvation that removed the terror of the true Demon King. The sight of trusted priests and followers running mad became etched into people's hearts as a fear of the organization of the Order itself. Anyone can hurt someone, even us of the Order. But don't you think that at the same time we wish for it somewhere in our hearts? The truth is, we don't want to hate, we don't want to hurt, we don't want to kill. Because continuing to hate someone is painful for anyone, isn't it? In this world there are those who can turn hatred into a driving force, who rejoice from the bottom of their hearts at hurting others. But as long as they're human, Kuze believed they weren't like that from the start. If such a heart was changed by the suffering of living, then it could change again. It could surely return to the heart originally given by the God of Word Arts. I sort of get it, and I sort of don't. With his fingers interlaced on his lap, Yanagis remained looking down. If that's all you're saying, it feels like it lacks any sense of admonition. If the God of Word Arts and the Order won't punish a hateful heart, then who on earth will? There are those who pass judgment. They are always watching us. To do the right thing? Because if you do bad things, you will be punished by the angel. 2. It is our own hearts. The angel the Order speaks of is not visible, nor does it speak to you. But when the God of Word Arts began this world, the angel that was divided as the invisible authority of the God of Word Arts, when its role was finished, it scattered to the corners of the world in tiny pieces and dwells in each and every heart. The heart, the guilt one feels for a sin, is the punishment itself. Is that your interpretation, sir? Is it too convenient a story? But when I think about the reason we are born with a conscience, a heart that should be a liability if one were to live selfishly, the reason such a function exists, that seems to me the most logical explanation. It's not a very useful story, though. Then, to erase hatred, if a sinner wishes to no longer suffer, what should they do? The Order's teaching is to know the heart of the other. If you can acknowledge that even the person you hate has a part of them that is the same as you, you no longer have to keep hating them. It's a deception, he thought to himself. He was only relaying what was widely taught in the Order. Kuze didn't know the way people were truly saved. In this world where the terror of the true Demon King had spread, even the leaders of the Order, far wiser than Kuze, likely did not know such a method. To know the heart of the one you hate.
Yanagis gave a dark laugh. Yes, that must be the best way. I know that very well. Lord Yanagis is already on board. Immediately after the meeting ended, Hit Out the Clamp received a radio communication from inside the Orange 36. It was one of the scenarios he had anticipated, yet it was an undesirable report. Damn it, so that bastard did it! Report the full situation. Claiming it's an investigation by the National Police Agency, he is boarded with 3 squads of his men. Our side is short-staffed for this urgent escort mission, and we have determined it would be difficult to repel them through combat. Of course it is. How are soldiers of the Yellow Capital supposed to kill each other in this situation? The Uhak transport mission had been carried out in top secret and at high speed to prevent the spread of damage, but it was likely wide open to Yanagis, who had been leading the operational headquarters from just the other day. Yanagis was part of the reformist faction that carried on Roseclay's will, and as the head of the National Police Agency, Hidao, a mere returning member of the 29, had no chance of winning in a contest of organizational control. So, he's on board. What is Yanagis doing? First, he confirmed Uhak's status and is now monitoring Kusei. He is not showing any signs of hostility. That's a given. That Yanagis knows better than anyone that Uhak and Kusei aren't guys you can take on with just 3 squads of soldiers. And yet it is also not applicable to Kia the World Word. This is just a military force to strong-arm his way into the operation. But then what card does Yanagis have to take on that Kia? It can't be that he just wants to watch Kia die out of a personal grudge. A fool who would do something like this must have a fool's reasoning. The Hidao of the past looked down on fools who acted on irrationality. But Halgent the Still, whom Hidao had looked down on, had brought forth the 6 Ways exhibition with Look Noke as a winter, stirring up the entire political situation of the Yellow Capital. Yanagis was no different from Halgent, a fool. He was driven by personal hatred, fanning Kia's enmity, and exposing the entire Yellow Capital to a threat. But at that time, would Hidao have been able to come up with a more ideal and optimal plan to lure Kia to the Mali Wastes alone and have her duel Mestalexo without any other casualties? Yanagis is a crazy bastard, but he's not a complete moron. He must have some plan that he thinks will work even if it means destroying the Yellow Capital. Fine. Don't let Yanagis near Kia. If he's in Kusei's guest room, confine both of them there until you reach the destination. Is that all right? I'm giving the order. Yanagis is the one who made the illegal intervention first. The destination for Uhak's transport was merely set for convenience. Considering Kia's mobility and omnipotence, it was highly probable that she would attack during transit. The purpose of chartering an entire train to transport Uhak was to get him, a high-probability target for Kia, out of the city as fast as possible and minimize the number of casualties caught in the crossfire. Confronting her at the Ogre Protection and Containment Facility would result in an unacceptably high number of casualties. And for Kusei, his only purpose was to be present at the scene of Kia's assault. If Kia could break through Uhak's supernatural erasure, then Kusei's instant death ability would become effective. The instant death ability of Unknown Principle was one of the few possibilities that could work against an all-powerful defense. To avoid giving away this plan, and to avoid getting caught in Uhak's ability of unknown range, it was more convenient not to even let Kusei out of his guest room, let alone have him face Kia. That's right. That's convenient. Hidao felt his thoughts being guided by a logic he favored. Yanagis, by occupying the train, had contacted Kusei, not the operation's key piece Uhak. Was this an action meant to make him think that he could deal with the unexpected intervention by simply confining them? Even if he were to confine Yanagis, he would easily be contacted by an attacking Kia. The choice Hidao should truly make was not the compromise of either ignoring or confining him. That's right. If I truly want to eliminate Yanagis from the operation, I have to stop the train, even if it means letting the frontline troops shed blood and throw Yanagis and his men off. The survival of the Yellow Capital is at stake. If I really think it's that bad, I should do it. Lord Hidao. Bad. I was just thinking. Hey, you. You understand this is a life-and-death mission, right? Yes. Even a young girl, I will not be careless. I am prepared to risk my life. Hidao had never doubted the loyalty and sense of responsibility of the soldiers who desperately carried out his orders, sometimes to their deaths. Whether they were elite or rank and file, Hidao had always chosen the path that would result in the fewest sacrifices. It wasn't out of goodness.
He wanted to live without shouldering the heavy guilt that comes with life-or-death situations as much as possible. Yanagis is dangerous. The Yellow Capital might be destroyed. Would he be able to order them to fight, telling them their enemy was not Kaya the World Word, but fellow soldiers of the Yellow Capital? No. My orders are as I said before. Don't provoke the reformist faction too much. Understood. The communication cut off. Hiro pressed his head for a while, trying to digest his self-loathing. After a moment, he turned his gaze to Kayate, who was busy with another radio communication in the same room. "How are things with Mestelexil?" "What? The communication is breaking up. He's in flight. He'll be at the train soon. The troops with Jan Nagis, I want them eliminated without injury. Can Mestelexo do that?" "Don't ask me to do such stupid work." He knew he would be laughed at. Delicate suppression was not something he could expect from Mestelexil from the start. "It's another story if you don't mind a few limbs being torn off, though." The North-South Railways, Orange 36. On this train running far from both the Castletown's theatrical gardens, where the Six Ways exhibition was held, the Shura were about to intersect, deciding the fate of the Yellow Capital. Uhak, the unspoken. Kuze, the passing disaster. Mestelexil, the box of despaired knowledge. Tu, the magic. Kaya, the world word. The first sign was a high-pitched artificial roar. A sound clearly different from that of a steam engine, it announced its approach as a low groan. Kuze sat up. "Lord Jan Nagis, is something approaching us?" "It is Mestelexil, the box of desperate knowledge. That sound is from his fuel engine, a jet engine, I believe it was called." "Wait, Mestelexil, is that all right?" Mestelexil, the box of despaired knowledge, had been announced to have broken free from his sponsor's control, gone on a rampage, and then vanished. Moreover, from the information Kuze possessed, it was impossible to believe he belonged to any upstanding faction. The man should have been eliminated from the tournament, but he attacked Kuze from outside the arena in the 8th match in service to Hearthold the Light Color, a lycanthrope thought to be one of the Obsidian Eyes. His rendezvous with this train is likely part of the arrangement. I ask that you do not react excessively. "Well, I wouldn't go so far as to kill him merely for being frightened, but—" Kuze scratched the back of his head and glanced out the window. "It doesn't seem to be coming from our direction. I can only see the blue sky and a sparse townscape streaming past. What could Auretia be planning? Besides, this room is locked from the outside, isn't it? That's strange. Could it be that I have fallen into a trap with you, Lord Jan Nagis?" "Ah, you mean that. There is nothing strange about it at all. I have no connection to this operation. I am simply an outsider who boarded of his own volition." "What?" Having been asleep in the passenger car from the very beginning, Kuze was completely unaware of these circumstances. Thinking back, Jan Nagis had not been among the Auratian soldiers who had relayed the orders to Kuze and accompanied him, but he had entered the compartment with such confidence that Kuze had simply assumed he was the commanding officer. "Besides, as I have already told you, I am no longer one of Auratia's 29 officials. For the operations commander to confine me is, well, an entirely reasonable judgment. And I'm just caught up in it?" The purpose of this transport mission was shrouded in mystery, but the power dynamics among the 29 officials of Arautia were even more inscrutable. And it felt as if danger was drawing near. It might just be Kuze's cowardice.
"Lord Yanagis, is it better if I don't call you Lord?" "As you wish." "Mind if I grab my shield, just in case?" Kuze's great shield was propped in a corner of the room. Although he was being treated like an invalid not expected to fight, he was nominally on a transport mission. Yanagis stood up as well. "Did you feel something?" "Yes, it's different from Mestelexo's mechanical sounds, but something is—" In a single breath, he rushed to the shield by the wall. Planting his right foot, he spun around instantly, shielding Yanagis from the window. There was a crash. It wasn't the window that shattered. The very steel wall of the train was torn apart and broken. Fine fragments scraped against the shield. A tall girl had just leaped inside. Her braided, chestnut-colored hair flowed behind her like a tail. "There was a passenger? I am so sorry." "Tu?" It was Tu, the magic. The target Oriatia was planning to eliminate using Uhak was her, after all. Yanagi's had just denied it. But, Kuze, why? This is my... The moment Kuze tried to speak, the situation shifted again. Ha 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 ha! Something like a mass of fire leaped through the large hole Tu had kicked open, slamming her into the door with destructive force. If he hadn't gone to get his shield from the corner of the room, Kuze and Yanagi's would have been crushed as well. It was an azul golem, pinning Tu's head which it had seized against the broken door and onto the floor. It swiveled, the one eye set in its spherical head. This is the enemy! The train, it's broken! Ha 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 ha! What was that all of a sudden? It was Mr. Lexel, the box of desperate knowledge. Having seen the train get damaged, he had immediately leapt to the location. Damn it, which one is the attacker, Lord Yanagi's? Neither of them, but they must be close. Ha 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 ha! Head not crushed. Hey, Kate, is this okay? If I kill this, is it... Huh? Wrong. This one is too. It has to be Kia. Is it? Mr. Lexel was shouting, as if in conversation with someone. The great force pinning down Tu's head should have easily been enough to crush her skull, but not a single drop of blood flowed. Mr. Lexel, this one is bad news. The compatibility between Nastique and Mr. Lexel was the worst imaginable. Nastique could preemptively kill Mr. Lexel before any of his unknown attacks, originating from the beyond, could land. But as the results of their actual battle had shown, she could not prevent him from reviving. It was not a simple immortality like two the magics. It was an infinite self-resurrection that presupposed death. And even if Mr. Lexel was not hostile to Kuze at this moment, this guy, he's showing that Nastique can kill anyone at will. Nastique, who sings in silence, kills those who would try to kill Kuze.